Growing up in the early 2000s, it was hard to avoid two types of games: movie tie-in games and extreme sports games. And at least in terms of extreme sports, one dominated them all, at least for a while. And for a young skater like myself, it was the Tony Hawk series. It's still to this day one of my favorite series, at least in the top 15, somewhere around there. Mainly off of nostalgia probably, but if you grew up around the same time I did, skater or not, you probably played these games, at least one or two of them. So today, I want to go back down memory lane and rank the Tony Hawk series. So to be honest with you guys, I never played like the Game Boy or DS games, the little kind of spin-off ones like American Skateland or Underground 2 Remix or things like that. So I'm going to go over the console games, some I've barely played, like two of them, or something like that. So if I have a hard time ranking those ones, don't give me shit. With all that out the way, let's start from the beginning. In 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater took the gaming world's attention with its extremely replayable gameplay loop, at the time good graphics, and most importantly, badass soundtrack, really bringing punk to the mainstream. But sadly, being born in 98 like myself, I was too young to really remember the impact that this game had, to be honest. I don't remember it at all. I was one. I didn't get into the series until like the 4th Pro Skater game came out, again because of my age here. So this one is a little blurry for me. After being spoiled later with the later entries in terms of graphics and gameplay, it's not really one I've come back to or even played that much, but you can't deny what it did for the series. I mean, it started the shit, of course. But for me, it's probably going to be a B tier. Even to this day, it's good, but, best of the best, let's be honest here. So after the hit, at least in terms of sales, Activision went straight to work on the sequel Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which improved on the gameplay in every single way. Better maps, better soundtrack, better graphics. I have played this one a good little bit growing up, and while it's simple, it's fun. Even for its age, it still feels pretty good to this day, and well, again, I didn't spend as much time on this one as most fans of the series did with this title, as this is the fan favorite. It's still amazing. But is it actually an S-tier game? I'm not so sure. I do want to say yes. I mean, this game probably has some of the best maps in the series, it's super replayable, and that soundtrack just goes off. I mean, yeah, it's an S tier, even though that's probably just the easy answer. I mean, for what it did, and it's still pretty replayable to this day, I'll give it the S tier. But the trend continues with one of my personal favorites in the series, and the first game I played was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. While 2 is the fan favorite, and for good reason, 3 is my all-time favorite, especially in the Pro Skater series. Again, improving on graphics, gameplay, maps, and soundtrack. I play this game on and off, still to this day. I love the levels. My favorite, for whatever reason in this game, is Canada. Just has that vibe to it. I can't explain it. And maybe it's the rose-tinted glasses, but I think it's better than 2, so if 2's an S tier, then you already know where I'm going to put this gem. It's an S tier all day. So now we're at the almost last title in the Pro Skater series. Should have been the last. At least the original series. I'm talking about, of course, Pro Skater 4. And I'll say in the original 4, they really don't miss. Again, graphics improved, the main soundtrack still kicks some ass, and the main campaign or whatever was pretty good. But I will say I don't love a good couple of these maps in this title. Some just don't do it for me. But I mean, there's still some great ones like Alcatraz, or I actually kind of like the college, the first level in the game. And the customization is great here, but the formula was clearly getting a little tired this 4th time around, and they would change it, for better or for worse, after this game. Still amazing, but I can't say it's an S tier, mainly off of small nitpicks, I guess. I can't give them all S tier. So I'm going to put this one in A. Still an amazing game. So Neversoft would change the style completely, at least with a nostalgic title for me, Tony Hawk's Underground. I love this game. Besides Pro Skater 3 and one other title in the series, it's one of my favorites and one that I played a lot growing up. Probably the one I replayed the most, at least back then. And while it has its issues mainly due to limitations and them trying to add gimmicks for gimmicks' sake, like cars you can drive and stuff like that, this game holds up pretty well. In my book, every level is a banger, for me at least. Love Tampa, especially the Tampa skate park in there, and Hawaii, don't know why, just love that level. And I like the addition of a story, a young Am from New Jersey making it in the skateboard world. I'm all for it. And while you could say that it takes away a lot of the replayability, that whole story that the Pro Skater games, had, I kind of disagree. I like this story. The only thing I don't like is this guy. But who really does like this guy? Again, the soundtrack kicks ass, introduced me to some of my favorite punk bands of all time, like NoFX, Bad Religion, Stiff Little Fingers. This is most definitely a nostalgia trip for me, but I hear a lot of people talk good about this game, so like it or hate it, I'm gonna put it in S tier. I love this game. Moving on to the Underground sequel, Underground 2, this one goes a little too crazy, kind of banking off the Jackass craze of the early to mid 2000s. We head out on the road for the World Destruction Tour, Team Hawk versus Team Bam. Again, this one's just a little too wacky, but I always kind of liked it. While the story does lack some replayability, at least for me, the maps are still pretty good, they still kick ass, and the soundtrack is decent. Only improving really the graphics a little, as well as the gameplay, adding like spray painting mechanics, as well as the sticker slap, which is cool and it's great for combos. While I don't hate this game, it's not the best, but far from the worst. We will get there, trust me. This game has a lot of charm, but it is a little dated, at least in terms of style. It's got good ideas, it's still a goodie, but I'm gonna put it in B tier. Moving away from the Underground series came the last game to really be like kind of good, at least in the series, or like have that charm and be really good, in my opinion, and that game is Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. I think this game's a little underrated. It's not great, but it doesn't deserve some of the hate that I feel like it gets. I think that's because, you know, the developers pushed hard in saying that this new map, LA, would be just one big level with no loading, for it to really just be long stretches of tunnels or hallways you would skate through to get to the next level, so the next level could load. In my opinion, it works. The skating doesn't stop, so it feels good to me, but I get why people felt that it was a little bit of a ripoff. But anyways, moving on, we play a runaway skater that came to LA to join the culture, learning a lot along the way and meeting new friends, and he builds, well, a life while absolutely destroying Los Angeles. I like this game a lot. It's just got this charm to it, and while not every level is a banger, and the story most of the time is kind of mid, I like it well enough. The style is fun, the little comic book style they got going on, and even some of the gimmicks they brought around this time I still enjoy. Whenever I boot up the game, like BMXing, the little bit of parkour mechanics, it's just fun. The soundtrack, again, actually is really fucking good. It doesn't miss. You got Green Day, one of my favorite bands of all time right there, and other greats like Rise Against, My Chemical Romance, The Dead Kennedys, and more, but with some crappy levels, like the skate ranch, you know, the supposed ultimate skate park you make throughout the game. Yeah, it kind of sucks. It looks cool, though. I mean, the Wasteland sign looked dope, but the rest of the skate park, unskateable, and it sucks. Don't really know where to place this one. It's really not that bad. This was the other game I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Underground, when I said I played the shit out of it. So it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine as well. So it's not perfect, but it's not bad. I'll put it in B tier. Solid game, some issues. So I wanted to throw this one in, even though I didn't play much of it. Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. It was okay. Going off the original idea for these games, before they decided to go with the Pro Skater formula, it's a racing game, and it's alright. I don't remember too much of it at that time. I was too busy playing Project 8, which was the other game that came out that year. It doesn't look the greatest or feel the greatest either. Again, it's alright, I guess. But I wanted to add it to the list, so where to put it? Because I don't know a lot about it. I don't have much nostalgia for it. I don't even remember a lot of it. I haven't played it in like 15 years. I'll put it in D. It was kind of mediocre, even for being a kid playing it, you know, for me at least. And that's me going off of memory, so yeah, there you go. But moving on to Tony Hawk's Project 8, at this point the series kind of started to get a little stale, and while the idea here is fine, the overall game is kind of just mid. The story is that Tony Hawk comes to this town looking for the best 8 skaters, so we strive to be on that team, you know, the Project 8 team. Whoa, it's in the title. The maps is iffy, or map, should I say, is that this played, at least if you played the 360 version, which I played on back in the day, and to this day, when and if I ever decide to pop it in. And they did actually what they set out to do with Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. They actually made the map like one open world without loading tunnels, but it's not that great, really. I mean, the soundtrack is iffy, and the gimmicks this time kind of falls flat for me. The nail the trick mechanic, it's okay. I don't really know what to say about it, or even say about this game. It looks good and plays fine, but everything in between, it's kind of whatever. It's not bad, but it's not good. I'm gonna go with C for this one. Moving on to the last Tony Hawk game, though, that I really had some enjoyment out of, until years later, of course, I'm talking about Tony Hawk's Proving Ground. We are a no-name skater with options. There's multiple small story arcs you can go on in this game. You can go with hardcore, which is a classic rough kind of punk rock style, not in it for the money and the fame, just trying to be rad. There's career, where that's the complete opposite, where we're trying to make bank doing this and looking good and whatnot. And then rigor, where we skate anything and everything, making what we can to make anything skatable. It's good for what's here. I mean, I like it more than Project 8 most days. I mean, the side stories are good enough, and I do really like the map, having Baltimore, Philly, and Washington, D.C. It's all pretty fun. All in all, it plays good, and the soundtrack is pretty decent. They got some Clash in there, which another one of my favorite bands. And they brought back the man, the myth, the bitch, Eric, from Tony Hawk's Underground, which is pretty cool. I'm in between B and C for this one. I like it, but it's not super replayable for me. I don't know, it's just not as, it just doesn't call to me like, the first 5 or 6 games did. I mean, I like it, but I'll put it in C for now. It's got great stuff in it. They added more to that nail the trick with nail the grab, and that's neat, but compared to what we already have, it's kind of mid, it's iffy. So these next 3 games are painful, so we're going to try and breeze through them as fast as possible. So at this point in the series, it was time for a whole new gimmick, just taking it to the next level for the series, and not wanting to be stale, and in the age of plastic accessories, you know where I'm going with this. For consoles, we got Tony Hawk's Ride, this game where you play with the plastic piece of shit skateboard, and it didn't work well. And I'd know, my dumbass thought it would be cool. And I bought it, like, around the first day it came out. It came out around the day my birthday did. It's now collecting dust somewhere, and it sucked. I mean, I played it maybe a handful of times, and I feel bad, actually, for my grandma, as she knew I wanted it and bought it for me for my birthday around the time, like I said, the game came out. And it was awful, and she probably noticed that I didn't play it much, but thanks, Grandma, you're still a real one. But this game fucking sucks. I don't even really remember shit. It's an F. And even though people didn't like Ride, they did it again with Shred, but you could snowboard this time, and it still sucked. I played it once, but not because I bought it, because I rented it, because I already had the controller. You remember renting shit? You remember Family Video? Still sucked though, looked like ass, and had nothing really new to offer from what Ride offered. It's garbage, barely played it, and there was a reason it wasn't fun. F tier, as if you are shocked. So after a few years in the series kind of hanging by a thread, considered dead at the time, they wanted to start kind of in an area where it all began in a way, and added a new addition to the Pro Skater series with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Again, didn't play much of this because it's buggy. I still think it is, actually. The levels sucked, the gameplay sucked. We just don't talk about this one in the community. I feel like it is he who shall not be named kind of deal. But they did it, and they still try to sell this on the stores for like $60. It's kind of insulting, and it's trash. And if you had any doubt, F tier. It just kept missing. So years after that, and people forgot about the era where Tony Hawk games dominated sports games with 3 horrible games left at its end, all hope was lost for us kids that, grew up on this series in the early 2000s. I mean, we would never see it again. Until we got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remastered. Nothing new, 2 old games, but built from the ground up. It was actually pretty awesome. It still is pretty awesome. It wasn't a slam dunk by any means, but it brought those 2 classics back in the best way, even updating the soundtrack a little bit. And the levels, we got to relive, the original and the fan favorite all over again, giving us hope for the future of things to come. This game is pretty fun, and I liked it. While it's not my favorite, games in the series, it was cool to see these classics come back in such a cool way. And while it's not perfect, it is really cool. So it's a solid A tier for me. But with that being said, that's my list. While there's no news on them remaking any of the other classic games, it ended in a better place than it would have with Pro Skater 5. And I do hope that they remake or remaster, or whatever you want to call it, Pro Skater 3 and 4, and of course Tony Hawk's Underground, but the chances get slimmer and slimmer every day. And we can only hope, as I do love this series, and while I like other skate games like Sessions or EA Skate, there's just something special about those first, like I said, I'll say like 6 games. And whether they remake them all or not, I'll remember those games forever. But anyways, if you made it this far in the video, I just wanted to say thank you and you're awesome. I hope you enjoyed it, but that's all I got for you today. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe to see more stuff that I have done. But anyways, thanks for coming and thanks for watching.